Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And today we have Paul Mitchener, RPG creator, and I believe you're a mathematician, right?
That's right, yeah.
I would like to talk to you about being a mathematician, but first,
Cool.
You created RPGs, so let's get into your gaming roots. What got you into the hobby gaming?
Okay, so it started off, like many people, as a young teen and at school. And a friend of mine, actually a year ahead of me, sort of actually sold me a copy of, well, the Dungeons and Dragons basic set and the Dungeons and Dragons expert set. And apparently next week I found out I was meant to be running a game. So I GM'd before I played.
Oh wow, that's hilarious.
And I ran something hugely derivative. So I think I had this journey across a desert. There was a river running across the desert full of water that would paralyze someone who fell in. Then there was a magic item shop in the middle of nowhere. And of course, like young teens, they basically, they decide to weaponize the water, use it to rob the magic item shop owner. And the session ended on a cliffhanger when the magic item owner came after them and actually ensnared the entire party in a web.
Wow.
Then sort of the next week at school, everyone was just passing notes sort of saying, God, how do we get out of this?
That's amazing. That
was my start anyway.
That is an amazing start, because usually it's like you go into a dungeon, kill monsters, and take their stuff. And this is highly imaginative. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
No, I'm serious. Some people they start off with that kind of murder hobo-ish right away, and some people never get out of that. But that's cool. That's a cool story. So you start playing D&D, and then what happened after that?
So I stuck with D&D and moving to AD&D for quite a few years. Tried out a few different games. Yeah, so I think the first one I probably tried was Paranoia, which again suited that sort of type of. Again, that was late teens by then. It's got the stress relief thing, really. And then later on in my 20s, I moved on to things like Call of Cthulhu.
Yes.
It was probably around 2007 when I went to my first convention. And then the number of games I saw out there, it just sort of exploded, really.
Right.
And I started playing lots of different things.
Pretty cool. So at 2007, wow. So that's a long time you've been playing before you even went to a convention.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, yeah.
Well, are conventions kind of rare where you're at, or you just weren't all that interested?
I don't know, really. It's just more that I thought they'd be full of really sort of strange people.
Well, that's true, though. They are.
Which is absolutely true, yeah.
I'm there, so I know it's strange.
Well, I think what sort of changed me is, okay, my history, again, this is tying into the maths. So I was working for a few years as a postdoc, and I was moving a lot from place to place.
Okay.
So I moved for a while, and also from country to country.
Wow.
So I lived in the States for a year, then it was Denmark for a year, then it was France for a year, then it was Germany for about 5 years. And then when I moved back to the UK, I thought, okay, I need to meet people, I need to make friends, let's try and find a gaming group. Right. And I stopped, hit Google, and I found, there's a local convention, and it's running in 2 weeks' time. I should go to this. And that's what got me started, really, there.
I've been going to conventions since I was 16, and it was mainly just me and my brother going, and then our friends started going, and I just never stopped. There was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years I stopped going, but there was always a convention here in Northern California that I would go to, and me and Jolene would go into like gaming stores and stuff, and I'm always trying to be an ambassador to the hobby, but not that they need to be because they work at a game store. But I would always ask them, hey, do you ever go to a convention? And surprisingly, a large number of people don't go to conventions. They're like, no, I've never been. I'm like, wow. It just seemed to me like it would be a natural progression from playing a lot of games to going to a convention. But a lot of people see going to a convention as not very interesting, or I don't know, maybe they're afraid, or like there's a bunch of weirdos there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like I did miss out not going to them earlier. That's definitely true. But also, I don't know, there's sort of a lot of people in the hobby as well. There's a certain sort of shyness, isn't there?
Yes, it's supposedly that's a trope of people who play role-playing games, is that they're socially awkward, and that might also be shyness too. But you're right. I think, I don't know. It's just weird that I find it strange that people who play a lot, or people who play who work at a gaming store have never been to a convention. I thought,
Yeah, that's a bit strange. You'd think the gaming store people would definitely.
right.
I mean, a lot of gaming stores have a presence at conventions, so
Right,
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have like 3 here in the Bay Area that are, relatively, they range between 1,000 to like 3,000 before the pandemic. So, some of them are really large and some of them are quite small, but they're still there and they're not far away.
yeah, absolutely. If it's local or relatively local, you sort of might as well.
What is your favorite RPGs that you got into when you were playing? I mean, I know you played D&D for quite a bit, and what's your favorite game so far?
I think, oh God, favourite games. I think I'll go through a stage of, how shall I put it, having an intense love affair with a game and then sort of moving on to the next thing.
Right.
I'm sort of a role-playing Lothario, really, or something.
Yeah, I tend to be the same way.
So, I mean, for example, I'll give you some of the things that I've fallen intensely in love with and still like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do still like Call of Cthulhu. Coming through to the conventions, probably the key one I discovered at conventions and thought, oh yeah, this is good. I'm in love with this. I'll do everything with this, was Fate.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. So I'm bouncing around here. Next, probably one of my next big things, I also came into some of the D100 fantasy things like Open Quest and Mithras. Those were a big influence. So again, different corner again.
Yeah.
Then coming into sort of, I don't know, another big love affair was Rain, the Greg Stolzer game with the one-roll engine. And that was actually also not Rain, but Wild Talents, the one-roll engine superheroes game.
Superheroes,
Yeah, so that was actually the first thing I wrote for, with a little setting called Blood of the Gods, which was basically superheroes in ancient Greece.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's yeah. I think I read that in somewhere down in your bio that because I looked you up. I had to look you up because I don't want to seem totally not knowing
That's
who you
fair,
are. And you because you created a game later on, but I was like, it seems like that's like a natural progression, right? You play a lot of games and then you submit something for like an adventure or a source book or something, and then you get published in them, and then you're like, hey, if I can do this, I can keep going.
Yeah, that was you're right. That was basic. That was absolutely my progression, and of course, that gave me my start. And then moving on, I suppose other games I've fallen in love with, not necessarily ones I've written for. So one big one, I really liked Night's Black Agents. Spies versus vampires.
Yes.
And then I suppose probably my most recent one I've absolutely fallen in love with, and again ran a lot, was probably the One Ring for sort of Tolkien fantasy.
Saul loves that game.
Yeah. What's funny is that game, I got it like years ago, right? And I tried to get a game lifted, get off the ground twice, and it just would fall apart.
Oh.
And then about 3 years ago, I got a new band. I got a new group together, right? And they were really interested in Call of Cthulhu. They love Call of Cthulhu, which is not my bag, right? I don't like that hopelessness. I don't like that. I don't know what you call it. That idea that you're never going to make it. So I'm more of a heroic type of player.
I think with Call of Cthulhu, you've got to. I mean, I'm quite fussy about my approaches to it.
Okay.
So I almost like I want almost a heroic aspect to it. The fact that you're fighting against this thing because it's actually dangerous to tell anyone else.
Right.
There in front of you, you've got to do it. So I sort of see it as almost a heroic thing. That's what you've got to do.
Ah.
And probably that's relatively rare in Call of Cthulhu things where it turns into sort of black comedy, which I don't particularly care for.
Right. No. Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of experience with it, and I think lately we've been playing a little bit more because that group that I got together with, they really love Call of Cthulhu, and one of them has actually got something written, got published by them, or got something done with them, and they've been playing a long time and running a lot of games, so they're really good at it. And
although I always go insane and die, so
it goes with the territory. To be honest, it does go with the territory.
Well, we haven't played in a campaign. We've only played in one shots.
Yeah.
But in the One Ring, in that game, I introduced the game, and I was my intent was just to run one shots with this group. Go from one game to another, switching GMs, and they really liked it. So it's kind of caught on, and it's kind of like a campaign. Yeah. So we're going through the what is it, Darkening of Mirkwood.
That's excellent. Yeah, so that's what I did. I played through that. Actually, it was an online game before. Well, games had to be online.
Okay.
Ways of getting people together. And what we had, I think we went through and we basically divided play into seasons. We play about sort of 4 to 6 sessions, and then have a break of a couple of months, and then get back together. And I think we had about 10 seasons.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So it was a nice long running thing, and we
Yeah.
did get to the end.
So were you a player or were you a GM?
I was a GM for that, so it's one of the best things I've ever run.
Really? I really love it. I really like the game. I like the rules, how it seems to me token-esque in a certain way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, a lot of people don't like it because it's like, I don't get the rules. I don't get, why do we have to roll for all these journeys? It's like, I'm like, oh my God. Have you read The Lord of the Rings?
It's a travelogue. You've got to have that.
Yeah, so, well, okay, so you play quite a few different games and you actually like quite a different games. That's pretty neat.
So do you GM more than you are a player?
It's probably about 60-40 with 60% GMing. I mean,
Yeah.
I find that if I'm just GMing and not playing, I sort of start to really miss playing. And
Yeah.
the other way round, if I find I'm just playing and not GMing, I find I'm really missing GMing. So I definitely need both.
Right. What do you like about GMing? What are your favorite things about it? I mean, is it the power that you have when
It's
you
the
wield that?
power. I guess it's the bit where you're most in. Well, I was going to say not in control so much, but you've got this idea where I suppose it's the thing that gives your creativity the greatest scope. Yeah, you're letting yourself loose on the world and bringing things into it, and then again, I suppose to an extent as well, entertaining people, but also the fact that you're setting up situations, right? If you're a good GM, you set up situations. You don't set up plots. You set up situations.
Yeah.
And then your players' responses to that entertains you. You can
Right.
set things up and think, oh, what are they going to do there? I can't wait to find
Exactly.
out. And that's brilliant.
Exactly. I years ago, I was running Space Opera, which is an old FGU game. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's supposedly extremely difficult to make characters and stuff, but like everything as a RPG player, GMer, you tinker with the rules a little bit, make it more suitable to your taste. Anyway, so I was running a game, and exactly that happened. I had an idea of what was going to happen. I had like situations that were going to come up, and even though I try not to, I have an idea in my head how things are going to work out. And the
Sure.
player just like gave me like a 180, and I was like, and their ideas were just like blew my mind. I was like, wow. And then I was thinking, I've told it on a podcast. I mean, I've said it on a podcast. I go, that idea was like 10 times better than what was in my head.
Yeah, and that's the good bit, isn't it? When that happens, it's sort of, yeah.
And then, like you said, now you're being entertained because you don't know what's going to happen, right? And these people are just like coming up with ideas and trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, and I'm reacting, and we're just like this, what do you call it? This like improv session going on. And it was really neat. It was probably one of my favorite sessions I've ever played. It was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, what you do is you prep to improvise, right? That's my slogan here lately.
That's a good one.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy that. So it's,
it's yours. You can have it now.
I've run a lot of games for kids, and I never know what they're going to do.
Oh
So.
God, that's more random, isn't it? When you're getting to that.
Yeah.
Yes,
They want to make friends with the monsters, so that's good. We'll do that.
Well,
yeah. So
that's nice though, isn't it? Really, it's nice that they want to make friends with the monsters rather than being little violent psychopaths. That's good.
Exactly.
yeah, that does happen. What do you like about playing?
I think it's a case of then it's about character. So I'm inhabiting a character, seeing the world through that character's eyes, and that type of inhabitation, as it were, that type of portrayal, that's really good fun.
Yeah.
And you can do things from completely a viewpoint of your character. I mean, okay, sometimes you step out and think, okay, it would be cool if this happens. But, sometimes it's that, well, I wouldn't even call it a restricted viewpoint. It's more the viewpoint of being sort of the protagonist or a protagonist. That is really good. And you've also got this tension in the story. If there's some sort of really vicious sort of, okay, let's say fight, it's often a fight. You're thinking, oh no, my character might die. That's big. You don't get that sort of adrenaline rush in the same way as GM.
Right. Because you're prepared for all your NPCs to go down. No
Oh
problem.
yeah. You can't get attached to NPCs.
No.
Well, you can't expect players to actually particularly think, okay, this is a brilliant NPC. They'll like them. No.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that sort of that waitress who I just gave a name to and I don't know anything about. For some reason, they're really fascinated by her. Yeah, okay, she's important.
Yes,
I didn't know she was important, but
what's funny is I was running a sort of a Fate game using I was running my own version of Dresden Files. I based it in Monterey, California, which is a little town next to my hometown.
Yeah. That's a music festival place, right? Isn't it? It's the
festival. And it's Steinbeck country, and there's all kinds of history there. And I go,
of course, the Steinbecks.
Yes, of course, and Cannery Row, the book and stuff, and
Sweet Thursday, and that. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
So I decided, I go, well, what happens if this sleepy little town was like a hotbed of supernatural, right? So at one point they would latch on to characters like nobody's business, right? And so I go, okay, I'll give them a waitress that has a background and everything. So I made up a big old background. I gave her a name. I still remember her name. Her name was Heather Chow, and she was really gifted waitress, and they didn't care about her one bit. I was like,
yeah, you can't predict it. And this guy, you just thought, okay, he's like, oh, there's a cop who comes to see. Oh, brilliant! Yeah, we'll make friends with the cop. We'll ask him lots of questions about his personal life.
I know.
Well, I don't know. Oh, just make something up. Oh, I think I want to date this guy. Okay, really?
Like they totally not infatuation, but there was this what do you call him? The guy who parks your car, valet, right? And they're like, "Oh, what's his name?" I'm like, and I out of the top of my head, I could go, Bill, and they're like, "Whoa, has he seen anything?" And then they like really start grilling him. I'm like, "Oh my god!" So we're gonna have to contact him later. So it was funny. So you've been playing a while, right? When obviously you played it when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
Did you always tinker with rules?
There was always it's weird. I went through phases of that. So before I knew too many games, I sort of tinkered pretty heavily. Now I tinker less with the rules. I try to sort of bring them out and think, okay, let's do it there. But of course, there's always a little bit of streamlining you do. Yeah, that's just inevitable. You think, okay, that's going to be clunky at the table. I'm not going to run that as is.
Yeah. Especially like you said, you didn't have a lot of exposure to a lot of different games. For me, I would always like buying new games, and I would look at the rules. I go, oh yeah, and I would think about incorporating rules in different games. But I was never very motivated. I don't know, to do a lot of work like that. So I just leave the rules alone. I just play the way they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier and it's better. And if you're playing in sort of shops or conventions or getting a group together,
right?
You want to say, "Hey, I'm playing this game." You don't want to say, "Hey, I'm playing this game, and here's 3 pages of the rules on the page."
Exactly.
That's not good, right?
That has happened at conventions.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It does happen.
Yes.
And how do you feel about that? It's not.
Yeah. The old bait and switch. I don't know. One of my friends, we go with another family quite a few conventions together, and they have a son exactly the same age as my son. Well, 2 days different, but they're pretty close. And the father and one of the sons who walked into a game that was supposed to be D&D, and it was a guy's homebrew, totally homebrew. He goes, I thought this was a D&D game. He goes, well, it was inspired by D&D, and the guy was a total pothead. So he was like high the whole time. So I'm like,
God.
But they stayed for the whole game.
They stayed for the whole game.
I would have walked out. Do that?
I would have walked out.
It was pretty funny.
It's one of those things, though. I mean, how do you walk out on a game, really? It's just a politeness thing. Okay, I'm British, so it's virtually a stereotype. But, you can't just walk out, can you? You just think, what you do is you play through the whole game and then you complain about it afterwards.
That's exactly what they did. It's so funny. A lot of gamers do that, and I totally understand. But me, I'm like, no, I can't do this. I'm sorry. I gotta go.
I can't even do that to a book. I got to read most of the book. Like Jolene goes, if I don't like it in the first 20 pages, I'm out.
That's not true. I give it at least half the book.
Oh, half a book.
Yeah.
Well, she reads faster than I do. So.
Books, I'll give 100 pages. 100 pages is my thing.
And then you just walk away, right?
Yeah.
I do if it's really bad. My friend Mike, he won't. He has to read the whole book. And I'm like, dude, if it's so horrible, stop reading it.
I know a lot of people like your friend Mike. I used to be your friend Mike, but I've given up Mikeness now. I've given up.
Exactly.
Life is too short.
Exactly. That's what I think.
And
That's
the
true.
piles I've got of books I haven't read and want to read, it's a case of, hey, yeah, I better get to those.
Well, one of the reasons why I never really tinkered too much with rules and stuff like that is because there's a little bit of math involved, right? With the probability.
Oh, yeah, so things should be balanced, yeah.
This is where your math or your real job, if you want to call it that, or your day job comes in, because you're a mathematician, right? You know everything about math and probabilities, I'm sure.
I think so I mean, going for the math side thing, there's two things. Firstly, you do want to make sure the probabilities of things happen and so on are balanced and things like that, make the outcomes you want, as horrible as you want. The other thing you want to do is, of course, hide your maths, hide your working. Your maths has to be invisible in the game. You don't want, I don't know, sort of arc tangents featuring the rules of your game, right?
I don't know. That might work for my son and his friends. They're really math heads and love all these, the what do you call it? The crunchiness of games, right? Like they love Shadowrun with all these dice and all this stuff. And
it's true. Some people really like crunch. That's cool.
Yeah, I agree with you on the hiding the math, because every time I've played Space Opera, which has only been a couple times, I've had to ask, which way am I supposed to roll, high or low? And there's like 17 charts that you have to use to figure stuff out.
Yeah, that's definitely things in the open, isn't it? If there's if you roll a chart each time, that's okay.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know that. I don't have that impression.
I mean, I could talk about my experience in Germany when I played Rollmaster. So actually, I played several sessions there. But the interesting thing there is, I'm not particularly fluent in German. I wasn't then either. But we were playing Rollmaster in German, and somehow by default, I was almost the leader of the party. It was
a little bit of a communication problem, and you're the leader. Perfect. Yeah. So how did that go?
It's fun, you're rolling on these critical hit tables. I mean, what's not fun about that?
Everybody loves those critical hit tables on that thing.
But character creation took about 3 hours, and that was a bit. No, I'm not sure about that.
Yes. Yeah, I think I one of my friends he ran MERP, which was based on the same rules.
Right. Yeah.
It's like I don't know if it's shortened version or condensed version, but I don't think so, because it took like 2.5 hours to make a character in that game at least.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So you're going to conventions or started going to conventions. You've been playing a while. You've even submitted some stuff for games. What gave you the bug to make your own role-playing game, which is Liminal, by the way, and you kickstarted it. We'll talk about that. But what got you in the mode of becoming a writer for an RPG?
Okay, so I guess I gradually drifted through things. So there was published stuff before Liminal that was usually so I mentioned Blood of the Gods, but it was usually either supplements for existing systems, such as some Open Quest stuff, my friend Newt, for example, or working with Graham Spearing on Age of Arthur. But that was a fate-based game. I had the basis already there. So I did start thinking, okay, what would I want to do that's really my own? And also, what would really do the very specific take on urban fantasy that I wanted, because it was, because I think Liminal, it's an urban fantasy game, but it's also quite specific.
Right.
And I started wanting to do, okay, let's bring out that sort of specificity. Okay, what's the word? But and I write games. I make money from writing games, and I don't know words. Right? Okay. But that type of getting the rules and everything all together, and that's part of that.
Right.
And then that's sort of the pipeline reason I was playing around that in the background. However, the reason it came at that particular time, the real reason, is that actually at work, my day job, I was on strike, and that was losing money.
Oh, really?
So, of course, I had to, well, firstly, I had lots of time. And secondly, I thought, okay, what can I do to make money quickly? So that was the Kickstarter.
Oh wow!
So that's why it got Kickstarted rather than going through another way. And then when I started thinking about the Kickstarter, I was thinking, well, actually, let's shoot big. Because one thing I want, and I think this is also really a part of the game, is Jason Benker's art. So Jason Benker had worked on other things. I thought, okay, what if we gave him actually try and work with something with a big budget and let's make it look really nice. And so, yeah, we gave this proposal to Jason, and it really got even nicer than I'd hoped and really exceeded expectations. But yeah, the art, I think, is just as much a part of it as the writing.
Right. It definitely is very. It does catches the eye and it makes people interested, and it's definitely what I would call, part of the overall buying. The reason why you buy a book or a role playing game.
Yeah, I mean that's my sales pitch at a con. I'll say, the con. You don't say what's this game about. I'll say, look at it. Isn't it pretty? You want it?
Yes, it's my precious. So that was interesting. So you how long did it take from your idea that you're gonna publish or write this book to getting that Kickstarter off the ground? You said you were kind of in a time crunch, but I can't imagine that being.
It wasn't really so. So to be fair, before the strike, I had been tinkering. I had been doing a lot of stuff. So before the strike started, it was probably about 80% done.
Oh, wow.
And then it's a case of, okay, let's finish off the draft. Let's talk to people. Let's launch the Kickstarter. And then I can get a draft out to backers once it's done. That's the usual way of doing things.
Right.
And then, do secondary and tertiary phases of play testing and things like that, after it's funded. So doing bits of that. And then, of course, getting everything edited and getting final drafts out. So but that's right. That's just play. I liked playing with that.
Right. So, your Kickstarter was pretty successful. I don't have the notes on me, but it overfunded.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. So that
by
was
like 6 times.
Yeah.
What you were asking for?
It was crazy. So, of course, I thought, I don't know. Will I make, I can't remember what I was asking, £3,500 or something like that.
It was pretty. Yeah.
I was thinking,
for it was kind of low, but yeah. But doable.
I was thinking, oh no, I'm not sure if I'm going to make that. And sort of next day I've made it, and it's going up at about £1,000 per day. And I was thinking, okay, this is crazy. I just didn't understand, and in a way, it was nice. It was like getting a big hug from lots of people.
yeah, definitely.
But I was really surprised how popular it was.
You say you have you wrote for Fate powered games. How come you didn't go with the Fate aspect of writing in that style, or you just had this idea already?
Yeah, I had the idea for the system, and I thought,
right.
Not only that, and at that stage, and to an extent I still am, I'm thinking it's nice to heavily customize systems.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
I liked Liminal. We played it, and it was great.
Yeah,
we've played it a couple times, so I really enjoyed it. I liked the system.
Yeah, so I heard your last podcast on Liminal. I think you did one, didn't you? As just the two of
us. Yeah. We really were. I was really excited for it. I don't know how it crossed my eye zone or whatever you call it, but I think I ordered it off eBay, and because I wasn't involved in the Kickstarter, and I saw it and I go, oh, this looks interesting. So I bought it. I read it. I go, wow, this is really neat. I mean, one is, as I'm, after I pushed 50, after I got over 50, my willingness to run really, really crunchy games has kind of like waned quite a bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm in my late 40s as well, and it's a case of I don't feel quite so patient with that sort of things I did.
Right. I wouldn't mind playing a crunchy game, but running them is like really taxing. So this 2D6 system that you came up with, it was like, wow, it reminded me of Traveler, a little bit, and I hated Traveler when I was a kid. When I was young, when I first started playing.
That has to do with the GM.
Right? Because it was just too simple, right? It just didn't seem like it was enough dice, and it was only 6-sided dice. How boring is that?
I love the 2D system. It makes it
No, I'm talking about back then. So, there was all these sexy polyhedral dice that I could throw, and Traveler was using 2D6, right?
Right, it's like it's not a proper role-playing game, is it?
Exactly. But then, fast forward 40 years, right? And I'm like, God damn, I'm tired of counting all those numbers. I just want something that I can do quick. I don't have to look in a book for anything. I don't have to look for extra charge or on bonuses for this or bonuses for that. If you're picking your nose while trying to shoot a gun, I don't want all that stuff. I just want something simple that can be that I could deal with quickly. And I was like refreshing. I was like, wow. And then it was more than Traveler, because Traveler is kind of basic, but you have like all these traits and talents and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's really neat. That really, and it sets the each character is totally different than everybody else. I really loved it. I don't know if you could tell, but
no. You sound like you sound like it was all right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun, and the people that we play with, most of them are GMs, so they had a blast. And I'm sure we said it on the podcast when we did the review of it, but they were, especially Bay and Morgan. They took to the rules, and they were looking stuff up. And when we got to our first fight, they're all, okay, let's stop. Let's figure this out. How are we going to do it? And then they were reading the rules, and it was really cool.
Yeah,
so they got really involved with it, basically. That's just cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat. And then, like, I've never been to England for one, and I was like, but I've, my wife is a Anglophile. She loves, watching British television and all that stuff.
Watch a couple of TV programs, you're fine, right? You're not going to offend anyone. It's right.
Yeah. And then Jolene just says, "Don't do your stupid Scottish accent. I'll turn off the camera if you do that."
We were doing we were playing with my brother-in-law, and we did the Ghosts of Glencoe and that scenario. And my brother-in-law and our friend Mike were doing these horrible accents. I'm all, please stop. You're driving
But it was hilarious because, none of us are actors or even taking any kind of voice lessons and stuff, accent lessons. But it was funny. But I was like, and they weren't trying to be like, cheesy funny. They were just trying to talk in an English accent. And I honestly, wasn't even noticing that. I was just like, in the moment trying to, keep the game moving. And it was really funny is that, not funny, but interesting is that when people were going, oh, can we look up stuff on Glencoe? I go, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. That's absolutely, that is what's cool about it, right?
I was like,
you play with Wikipedia open. So that's all right.
And they loved it. It was like they looked it up on their phone, and of course we're on Zoom, right? And they're looking it up, and I'm going, well, I know this story, but and so it was really cool watching them or look at it and find stuff. It was great.
Yes, I remember playing that game because I ran it at a con again, and I had someone looking up the history of the two clans on that.
Yes.
And so on their phone again, and she suddenly said, "Okay, those guys were real bastards."
Yeah, they deserve to die. And it was funny because the shock of usually, I guess, because information is like a big deal in role playing games, right? It's like hoarded by the GM, maybe, I don't know. And so when I said, they go, well, can we, let's do an investigation on Glencoe. I go, so what are you going to do? He goes, well, I'm going to look on a computer. I go, okay, just do it on your phone. And they're like, the shock on their face going, what? We can look it up. I go, yeah, just there's Google. It's modern day. And they're like, okay. And then they were like, oh my God, it's about, and there's like the whole relations of what was happening in the game and the history of it was just perfect. It was just great game, by the way.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I do like that because I like that feeling of grounding it there as well. And then, of course, you can stop with the supernatural side. You stop shifting those expectations away. And that's what the fun is.
Yes. Great game. So obviously you had a good Kickstarter, right? Were you at all nervous about it? I mean, once the money started clicking up, I guess you were pretty happy and excited.
I was really nervous before it started. You think, okay, it's not going to fund. And it's sort of, right. Okay, I'm putting my name out there and no, I don't want to do that. And, I've pushed the button, it's launched. Oh, God, what's happening? Oh, there's money. And then you get the second phase of nervousness, which is, oh man, it's too much responsibility.
Yes, I got to get this out.
Oh my God.
And then my joke was, it's funded at just the wrong amount, right? If it hadn't funded, it's a case of, well, okay, I wouldn't have to do it. If it made millions, I could just run away with the money, but that's not enough to run away with, is it?
Yeah.
I've just got to get it out and do it.
Now you're stuck.
I wouldn't run away with the money. Listeners, I would not run away with your money. You can trust me there.
You obviously had a very good experience, and it was fun. After you funded and stuff, your stretch goals, I think almost all of them were met, if not all.
Yeah, I think there was just one stretch goal that I put in at the last minute that wasn't met. But hey, that's all right. That's cool. So all the books funded, and they're of course, slowly coming out, but they'll be there.
Right. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, anyone who's in on the Kickstarter, they're getting a new book each year. That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, and that's fantastic. I mean, as long as the product gets to my table, I don't care how long it gets. Usually. So, but no, that's pretty cool. You were successfully funded, and then I was able to get in on the next one you got out.
Excellent.
Was out of the ashes?
Yeah,
the RPG. So this one is a little bit of a different. Post-apocalyptic, but it's not like modern post-apocalyptic. It's a fantasy post-apocalyptic, which I thought was kind of interesting. What gave you that idea?
Well, I think it's a case of, so it's almost a current times inspired thing. So, of course, we've had this pandemic and things like that. And I thought I wanted a game that's firstly about communities, and secondly about rebuilding.
Right.
And then thirdly, I want the fantasy heroics as well. And again, being genuinely heroic. That's a big deal for me. So those three things coming together, that's the influence. And then it's a case of, also doing something different, having fun with inventing cultures and inventing monsters and things like that. That's getting back to roots, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So instead of using the same system in Liminal, which is 2d6, you went with the 2d10. Now you're a mathematician, so I figured there's got to be a reason for that. Right?
Okay, yeah. So looking through it, so it's actually definitely a twin to the Liminal system if you look through carefully. The difference between 2d10 and 2d6, of course, is there's a bigger range of outcomes, and there's a bigger range of sort of abilities and growth of abilities.
Right.
So you've got more scope for ability growth and more scope for, I suppose, misfortune and fortune in combat, for example. Not just combat, but... So it's making combat a bit more tense than Liminal. Liminal, of course, is not about combat. And what fun is if you've got a fully if you've got a raging werewolf in your party, unless you're coming against something that's really powerful, you're probably going to win. You're probably going to win about 1 or 2 rounds, and that's cool. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened in my game.
Yeah, that's all right. That's the game working as intended.
And they were shocked. They're like, "Oh my god, I just killed that thing," and they're like, "Yeah, you're a huge werewolf." And they're like, "Oh." They were like kind of apprehensive about their own power, right? They're like a bull in a china shop. They're trying to not break too much china.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a theme there. But of course, that's what it's about. If you've got somebody who's specced out for combat in the party, or more specifically a monster who's specced out for combat, of course they're going to be really tough.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know. Well, Saul did tell me it was a 2D10 system, but I didn't. Now it makes sense that there's more. You can have more outcomes. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you've still got things like the traits and things like that were from Liminal, for example, and things like that. It's a very similar design.
Yeah, it looks nice. I mean, the art that I saw, that I've seen so far, it looks pretty cool. How's the writing come along?
So the writing. So again, the game's done. The game's been play tested lots.
Right.
What I'm working through, I've sent it to the editor. The editor had a lot. So the editor, who's Tim Gray, who's lovely, but he had a lot to say. So I'm kind of working. I'm about halfway through working through his edits, but it's going to be quite polished. Yeah.
Is that a sign of a good editor or a bad editor?
I think it's a sign of either a good editor or a bad writer.
Yeah, it's good.
Editors are like that, though.
Yeah, and the worst thing is he's going to get no thanks for this at the end. He's going to say, if people like it, they'll say, "Well, Paul's writing was great," but it wasn't. It was Tim's editing really that was good.
Now, he's not the same person that edited Liminal, is it?
No, so it was Guy Milner who wrote.
Milner.
He also wrote that case note you were talking about.
Right. I just recognized
he's a good friend of mine, but Guy will be involved in this as well. Another second stage editing, really, and proofreading.
So, like, I didn't really ask you. I didn't put it down on the notes or something. But so when you play games, do you play these like the guy Milner, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, so
Are those friends of yours that you play with in a group?
yeah, definitely, yeah, definitely. So guys are sort of guys, someone I suppose I've got to know through conventions mainly.
Ah,
But of course, we get together and play games when we're sort of meeting online this last year,
yeah.
and yeah, it was good.
So speaking of the pandemic and playing online, were you playing online before the pandemic, or were you one of the many people who hadn't really thought about it and just uh, playing online was kind of like, I'd rather play in real life, and then forced to play online, kind of pushed you on, well, pushed you to either you're playing online or not playing at all, right?
No, I was playing online before. So there's people who are local who I love to bits. And then there's also sometimes you want different games that aren't necessarily going to appeal to the local people.
Right, right.
And so that makes it sound very sort of, I don't know, the local people. No, anyway.
No, it does happen.
And then, but then there's a bunch of great people who, for example, I know from conventions.
Right.
And some of the smaller conventions, I mean, I'm talking about smaller conventions where it's less than 100 people.
Okay.
You get to know a lot of people there and sometimes often playing the same game. And it's a case of, well, actually, it'd be nice to play a campaign game together rather than one-shots.
Yes.
So it's kind of keeping up that friendship. So, yeah, I was doing a fair bit online before.
Right.
I mean, this last year has exploded. You know, there's loads online. Yeah, I could play 2 games a day if, well, I couldn't for practical reasons, but the number out there would permit that.
Right. If you could, if you wanted to and had the time, you could. I know a guy who's retired, and he plays like 4 games a week, and sometimes even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and you know, he's retired and he's taking it seriously, right? He's isolating. He's not going anywhere. He's not going out with friends and meeting people. That's his outlet to socialize, and so he's in a lot of games. And we know another guy who also is retired, and he lives out in the middle of the Midwest. And he moved out there. He was here in the Bay Area, and now he's playing like crazy. He plays all the time because he's stuck in some little town where there's nobody that plays, at least. And then there's a pandemic, and so he plays all the time too. So it's interesting how people who were kind of against online playing, once there was no other playing or no other option, all of a sudden we're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
Yeah,
Saul's
I do know
been
people
doing
who just,
it for years.
yeah. So some people are doing it. Some have really taken to it. I do know a few people who've just not taken to it at all.
Right. Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I miss that face to face game playing, but whether it's no playing or driving, going crazy, doing nothing. I mean, you know, we like playing games, so that worked out pretty good. And I was already doing it before because my brother had moved to Washington. Another friend of mine had moved to Oregon, and I have a friend who is in Texas. And so there's no way we could get together physically anyway. So we started playing Roll20 a long time ago, I guess about
2013 or
2013
like
is when we started. So
yeah,
but you know, it was just that group, and it was only every other Friday maybe. But once the pandemic started, I noticed that people wanted to play more often.
Now it's every Friday.
yeah.
Now it's every Friday.
I think the other thing that's nice as well is you can do it with people who are geographically dispersed. Yeah, that's a big thing,
Right.
like you're saying. I mean, as well, what I've found is, I mean, one game, for example, on Friday nights, or every other Friday, I'm currently running Warhammer, which is me, my partner, another local friend who, of course, we're playing with online, another friend who's from sort of, a couple of 100 miles away in England, and then a guy from the US, from California, actually.
Wow.
And a guy,
He gets up.
yeah, and a guy from Canada.
They get up early.
Well, we do it in the evenings for them. So, but yeah,
okay.
we're sort of playing over their lunchtime.
Wow, that's pretty neat. So, what Warhammer? What edition?
For the 4th edition, the current one. So,
the current one. Ah, that's pretty cool. And you're the GM?
I am the GM in that one. Yeah.
So you're Out of Ashes successfully funded, and you're working on that. What do you have? Do you want to say if you're working on anything else, or even thinking about anything else? How about maybe a science fiction game or something?
Yeah, so I've got a science fiction game that's sort
of. You do?
half written, well, not half written, and it's sort of, but actually I've got, okay, so there's two things that are definitely coming out really, which will be, of course, more stuff for Liminal, the supplements for Out of the Ashes,
Right.
and a book for my friend Newt's Open Quest, which I'm committed to.
Right.
There's a Kickstarter for another fantasy game that he's publishing rather than me as well, that will be coming out this year. In terms of things I'm tinkering with on the back burner that I want to get done, there's kind of two science fiction games at opposite ends that I'm tinkering with. So one's kind of a solar system science fiction game that's very, I suppose, politically angry is probably, yeah, it is the right way of putting it. So it's kind of cyberpunk. It's kind of, come on, we've got to blow up the system. The system's corrupt. Here's what it's corrupt. And then there's another one that's basically more optimistic science fiction in the vein of Star Trek and things. And I've run one-shots demoing both of those.
Oh, wow.
But I've not actually, but they're probably only about half written. But over the next few years, I'll probably bring both of those out.
Cool.
Cool.
So you're a busy man.
Yeah.
And you have a job.
Well, I have a job. Yeah, I know. It's great. Well, I don't have kids, you see, so, it gives me time.
Oh, how's that going?
It's all right. There's cats. Cats are good.
Cats are good. Yeah.
I'm allergic to
he's
cats.
allergic to
so
cats.
That's good.
Yeah.
Can't breathe.
I can't breathe. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a no-go, isn't it, for that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be so bad if it was just like allergies, like red eyes and itchy nose, like hay fever?
No, that you can adjust to, and you can take.
Yes.
If it's affecting your breathing, that's a whole different.
Yeah. When it closes my airways, that's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it hard to breathe. So that's pretty good. Look, it seems like you're pretty damn busy.
Yeah, I like to keep busy for things. In general, with this, in my job, everything is. I can't stand still. Why would I want to stand still?
Right. No, definitely not. I don't know what the age of retirement is in England. So are you going to be one of those retired persons that just plays all the time?
He teaches at university, so he doesn't have to retire till he wants.
Yeah, I'll probably gradually ease out sort of at university, going on the shorter and shorter weeks, which a lot of people do.
Well, now you live in Sheffield?
That's right, yeah.
See, I did a little research on you.
You've done
Just don't ask him to point it out on a map.
I have no idea where it is. But actually, I kind of do, because like when I was running Liminal, I had to figure out where things were in England. So
okay, have you ever seen the film The Full Monty?
Oh yeah.
That's where I live.
Oh wow, that's an older movie.
That's why my other job's sort of RPG designer. I didn't fancy the other one.
So how long have you been teaching at the university?
I've been there since 2007, so about 14 years now.
That's pretty cool.
So that was nice. I moved to the city, and I just thought, actually, I like it here. And I was on a 1-year temporary position.
Oh,
I thought, okay, I'm going to have to find another job, but I just moved into my office and said, no, you're not getting me out of here. I'm staying. That was okay. People said, okay, we'll stay then.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you've been moving around quite a bit, like you said before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to settle down.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
So, is there anything else you would like to talk
Share.
about?
Yeah.
Or share?
I don't know. I mean, I've kept you for nearly an hour now, which is you're patient people. You're really patient people.
We've said before, when we talk to people who are creators making RPGs or whatever, it's really neat to just talk to them and see where they come from, where they get their ideas, and we've been really amazed and lucky that people who we talk to have all been nice. I mean, we talked to the person who created Chivalry and Sorcery.
Oh yeah, the Britannia Games guys.
Stephen Turner.
Yes.
He was a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy. We talked to Christian Savalson, who does the Black Void. Also a really nice guy. He's from Denmark.
Yeah.
And we're just amazed at these really smart people. I consider them really smart people.
He's amazed. I just enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, there's that too. But you're generally nice people, and we're just lucky to be able to talk to you and
yeah. So thank you. For
yeah, thanks very much. No, I mean, what I find nice here is we're talking here, and it's a case of, hey, look, we've got lots in common, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Cool. Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, good luck on all your endeavors. We really looking forward to see your Out of Ashes and anything else you come up with. It should be fun. And
so thanks so much for having me on the show.
No problem. Well, thanks for saying yes and giving us a shot to grill you with all these questions.
Oh yeah, it was really hard. Yeah, I'm messing now. You can tell.
I know. All right.
Okay,
Well,
great.
thanks a lot,
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
and Paul Mitchener.
Have a great day.